The declaration of special martial law blared throughout HxH's hideout and the entirety of the Black Whale. The entire room turned towards the speaker. Everyone on Tier 5 of the ship is required to follow the orders of the military police and labor supervisors. Furthermore, the issues happening on the upper levels won't have an impact on them. The same will be the case on Tier 4. The passageway that connects them to the other tiers has been sealed. As such, there should be no impact on Tier 4. The people on Tier 3 have been instructed to kneel down while facing the nearest wall. From there, they need to put their hands on the wall and stay that way. They can't move until they're told to do so by the Royal Army. They also can't move elsewhere upon hearing this. To do otherwise is to be shot on the spot. So clearly security is a lot tighter on Tier 3. Borksen was concerned since special martial law is the highest level of security used in the face of a national crisis. Since the funeral procession of the 9th Prince was on Tier 3, it definitely seems like Chrollo may have succeeded in stealing one of their 3 national treasures. Under this level of precaution, the Royal Army has the right to shoot anyone they find suspicious without any warning. They're also obligated to kill any armed civilians or people who pose a threat. She turned to Morena and understood her concern. After all, Borksen herself was just on Tier 1, and she didn't see this coming at all. However, this announcement does help her narrow down the location of their hideout. Higher tier announcements aren't shared with the lower tiers. So Borksen assumes that she's currently on Tier 3 or above. The longer the broadcast goes on, the more information she'll be able to gather. She spoke in the midst of the broadcast to say that she'll be picking the deal card. Morena didn't seem to hear what she said. So Borksen repeated herself. The announcements continued. Everyone on Tier 2 was told to go back to their rooms and leave all of their doors open. Once that's done, they'll need to wait patiently with their hands laid flat on a desk or above their head. And they're not allowed to have any personal belongings or jewelry on them. Morena smiled. She's impressed by Borksen's level-headedness in the face of such a situation. She was happy to continue. She hardly expected their side's risk to be revealed at such a time. Borksen is sure that at this volume level, Morena should have been able to easily hear her over the announcement if she was paying attention. So either she was distracted or saving time to rethink. Ultimately, this announcement plays in Borksen's favor since she wants to leave. It always amazes me how deep the mind games go with this series. Simply asking someone to repeat themselves is treated like a major calculation. It's a wonder how low IQ enhancers manage to survive in this sort of setting. Borksen considered the fact that despite the importance and risk associated with the broadcast, Morena was still willing to continue playing the game. So she must be confident that their hideout won't be found, or that she'll be able to repel any raid attempts. Either way, none of this is disadvantageous to Borksen. If the game progresses without issues, there won't be any conflict over the result. The Royal Guard detaining Morena would be the best case scenario, but Borksen could just as easily become a casualty in such a confrontation. Or worse yet, she could face a lengthy interrogation or even torture. The only peaceful means of escape for her would be the X card, which would allow her to select any card she wants from the graveyard. And right now, if she complies with Morena's deal card request, she'll be able to add another card of her choice from the graveyard. That will turn her current survival rate of 50% up to 66%. Morena already decided that her small favor will be a kiss. Borksen just looked at her. She had a hard time responding to that, but made it clear that she'd rather not. Morena continues to say that she's looking for a deep mouth-to-mouth kiss. They just have to do so once for as long as it takes for her to be satisfied. That's because it's one of the conditions behind her ability. She decided to explain that a bit more, which caught Borksen's attention. There are 3 conditions that need to be met in order for a person to join them. 1. A person has to choose yes in the negotiation game. 2. They have to kiss member 0, in this case Morena, and become infected with her ability. 3. They need to be present when she or another member is murdering someone. The order doesn't matter, but all 3 are necessary. With that in mind, she asked Borksen again if she'll accept her request. Yet another broadcast was made. Everyone on Tier 1 was told to go back to their rooms and prepare themselves for military inspection. Once that's done, they'll be able to return to their normal activities. Borksen noted that this is a Tier 1 broadcast. Such a thing would never make it to the lower tiers, so by extension, they must be on Tier 1. However, she had to question the plausibility of her being taken from Tier 3 and moved all the way there so quickly. But then she had a thought that disrupted everything before. This woman is pretending to be a second track faker and the head of the HxH family. Although she's a mafia boss, she is still considered royalty, so she must have a residential area on Tier 1, which we've seen, although it hasn't been used. It could be that they were simply able to relay the higher tier broadcast to their hideout, so the location of their hideout could actually be on any tier. Morena understands Borksen's apprehension towards the details, but promises that she won't force her to fulfill any of the 3 conditions. Even so, Borksen knows that she doesn't have much of a choice if she wants to ask more questions and get the X card back, so she accepted. As such, Morena beckoned her to come closer, so they spent some time kissing off-screen. Afterwards, Morena covered her mouth while blushing. Borksen, on the other hand, had a deadpan expression totally devoid of any emotion. Morena profusely apologized. Borksen asked what the woman was talking about. Morena responded that she didn't expect it to be Borksen's first kiss. That roused a less controlled response from Borksen, who questioned how Morena could possibly be able to tell. But then she made it clear that she doesn't want to hear an answer. Morena asked if the girl wants to take a little break. Borksen felt like she was being made fun of. She insisted that they continue, and returned the X card to her options. Morena told her not to push herself, but Borksen refused to accept her pity. HxH was ready to shuffle the cards, but Borksen interrupted him. She raised a hand before he could touch them, and the HxH member didn't look too happy about it. She asked if she can flip the 2 cards that are face down. They both looked at her, and boy does Borksen have a mean poker face. She pointed to the cards and let them know that she couldn't keep an eye on them due to the kiss-related harassment. Morena doesn't have a problem with her doing so, but admitted to being a bit hurt by the idea. She asked if Borksen really wanted to look, questioning if she believes that they're both X cards now. Borksen agreed. If they have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be an issue. Again, although it's not a problem, it does hurt Morena's feelings. She for one can't stand the idea of a partner saying things like, "If you're not cheating, then just show me your phone." It clearly means that they don't trust her and is a total turnoff. It's important to remember that another aspect of this game is the vetting process. Yet again, she asked Borksen if she really wants to check. The guard refused to relent. Morena really is an amazing character. She claimed to be heartbroken by the lack of trust. They even shared a kiss and everything. Borksen retorted that such a kiss doesn't count and resolved to flip the cards. She lifted them, then laid them flat on the table. One reverse and one no. Morena was pleased by the revelation and confirmation of the game's validity. HxH took the cards and shuffled them. Then, like all the times before, he placed them on the table face down. Morena urged Borksen to select a child card. Borksen took her time with the selection. She slid a card forward, then turned it over. It was the X card she wanted. Morena shared her disappointment. Then she jokingly asked if Borksen wanted to check the other 2 cards again. Borksen didn't reply to that. Now it's time for her to pick her final card. Question A, question B, or yes. Morena told Borksen that if she only has one question to ask, then she'll let her skip question A and pick question B. Regardless, Borksen decided to pick question A. With that, Borksen can ask as many yes or no questions as she wants. She asked if HxH's hideout is somewhere on tier 5. Morena processed the inquiry for a moment, then she smiled and said no. Borksen asked if the hideout is somewhere on tiers 4 or 3. No again. She asked if it's on tiers 2 or 1, sure that it must be on tier 1 like she expected. Morena paused and said no again. Now Borksen was stumped. Morena just looked at her. 2 retro consoles were on each side behind her. Borksen asked Morena if she's lying. The woman said no. Now she had to think harder. She asked if the hideout is inside the black whale. To that she was told yes. She asked if the hideout was created by a Nen ability. This time, she heard yes and no. Again, she paused. Borksen thought to herself what that might mean, and what their location might be. Then she felt a sudden rumbling. She looked around in the midst of the quake, while Morena didn't shift at all. Borksen began panting as she came to a sudden realization. She began to ask her next question. Is the hideout somewhere between tier 2 and 3? This time, Morena said yes. Borksen considered the implications. All of this must have been planned from the very beginning, even before the manufacturing stage was finalized. The rumbling they just experienced was due to the central gate that connects tiers 3 and 2 being sealed, so they must be in that area. She asked if the entry or exit to the hideout is somewhere that's accessible to normal civilians. Morena answered yes and no. She asked if there's more than one entrance. Morena said yes. She inquired about the exact number of entrances by increasing the count after each no. Eventually, they landed on 5, and Morena said yes. Borksen realized that Morena's pauses before answering weren't on account of hesitation. Instead, the boss is considering the information in her head to ensure that she gives a correct answer. As such, Borksen will be sure to make full use of the vow and limitation system, something that may later play a role when it comes to her own specialist Nen ability. She plans to do so for the sake of protecting herself and her friends once she's able to leave. She asked how many members they currently have, including Morena herself, with the same method as the entryway questions. Eventually, they settled on the number 21. Borksen said that once she leaves, she plans on forgetting everything she's learned today, but she wants to know if Morena will keep her promise too. To that, she received a yes. Borksen paused. Then she asked if having no as her final card will result in her death. With no fanfare, Morena told her yes. She asked if Morena is the only specialist amongst the 21 members. Yes. Does she know the abilities of all the other members? No. Is there only one enhancer amongst them? No. She proceeded to ask a bunch of other questions related to their members, intent on gathering as much intel as she possibly can. After that, Borksen only had one more question. She admitted to actually feeling grateful that the two of them were able to speak, and the fact that Morena has shared this much information. If she ends up with a card that lets her leave, she wants to change Kakin in her own way. But she questioned if Morena would ever change her objective. She received a no without the slightest hint of hesitation. Does she have any intention of changing her objective? No. Borksen looked down. No matter what happens to her, will she ever change her objective? Another no. Borksen asked if there isn't even the tiniest chance of reaching some sort of compromise. A resounding no. Morena Prudo will never change her objective. With that, I have to wonder if that might be connected to a binding vow. Borksen looked away and paused for a beat. Then she said that she understands. Morena turned to HxH. He showed Borksen the final two cards in his hands, Return and No, the same card she began the chapter with. He began to shuffle. This is Borksen's final child card selection. Everyone in the room paid close attention to the game's finale. It's time to choose her final card. Borksen lifted a finger and placed it on the right side card. She slowly slid it forward. She met eyes with Morena. Borksen asked that they flip the last cards together. If Morena has Return, then Borksen will die. If Borksen has Return, she'll forget everything that's happened and walk away. Morena agreed, and the two began to count down from 3. 3, 2, 1, 0. Morena has No, and Borksen has Return. They both reacted with surprised expressions. Then Borksen clung tightly to the card that saved her life. Morena stood up and applauded her. Although it wasn't the outcome she had hoped for, it can't be helped. Once Borksen picks the card she wants to exchange it for, the game will end. Borksen apologized as the other members began walking away. Morena was puzzled. Borksen admitted to crumpling up the card on account of her excitement. Morena told her not to worry about it since she uses new cards every time. Borksen was relieved to hear that. As she reached for her selection, Morena was surprised by her pick. She paused, and Borksen continued to keep her cool. Then Morena spoke. She wanted to confirm that Borksen's pick was not a mistake. The royal guard told her that it isn't. With the yes card in front of her, Borksen clarified that there is no mistake at all. So just like that, Borksen will be joining HxH after all. This is a very intriguing, if not relatively expected outcome. They say to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. The best alternative would be to wait for a delayed death while remaining in the dark about HxH's operations from here on out. Instead, Borksen gets to retain all of this information, gain a Nen ability, return to her friends, monitor the situation, be exempted from the cleansing for even longer, actively operate as a saboteur, and although she doesn't yet know it, potentially become a new Member Zero and inherit Morena's specialist ability. If so, then she'll be able to create a new sect with her friends. And rather than killing people in cold blood, which they may need to do anyways as royal guards, they'll be able to especially benefit from the 10 levels provided by taking down ability users. And as far as we know, this aspect of the ability does not stipulate anything against gaining levels by killing other people infected by contagion. The benefits here are numerous, and she certainly has the intelligence and demeanor to pull it all off. And based on her goal now being to change Kakin in her own way, it's clear that this conversation of theirs has shifted her previously indifferent approach to life. Now she just needs to fulfill the third condition by being present for a killing. Yet another fascinating character has been added to the roster. Because she never selected the parent yes card, we don't know exactly what this acceptance will entail. So to some extent, it may still be considered a gamble. Whatever the case, thank you Togashi for yet another incredible chapter. Leave us your thoughts on everything in the comments. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.